everyone, welcome back to another recap of this week's PC gaming news. We've got an unsurprising cancellation, a couple of major Blizzard updates, there's a dope-looking vampire game, and a few interesting bits of new information for MMOs. Now, as per usual, this video will be me talking about the things that I'm most interested in, because if I'm not interested, it's not interesting. Right? This week's first story is disappointing, although truthfully, after playing the game, not all that surprising. Magic Legends has been cancelled. While still technically an open beta, Cryptic Studios has revealed they'll be ending development and shutting down servers for the game this coming October. The reason? Poor financial performance. And why did that happen? Well, because it simply was not a good game. For all of the weight behind the Magic the Gathering name, and despite Cryptic having made games people enjoyed playing in the past, they really dropped the ball here. The game was littered with performance issues, wasn't terribly fun to play, feeling pretty weightless compared to many other ARPGs. I also think their decision to randomly assign spells mid-combat to new keybinds while in line with the card game's random nature just didn't make for good ARPG mechanics. Like when you play these games and you hit a key or a button, you want to know exactly what it will do and not have to recheck every 5 seconds what that new ability is. I just think it was bad design. And let's not forget the fact that the game was littered with microtransactions from the start. Of course, we expected to be able to purchase card packs, giving us access to new spells. It is Magic after all, but between the XP, currency, and time-saving boosters, and the fact that they locked what many consider to be the most powerful class behind random loot boxes, the game did not leave a great first impression. But I think the biggest disappointment here is that a Magic the Gathering ARPG should, in theory, be a sure bet. It's such an amazing universe and setting for a fantasy game. If you put some good hack and slash combat in there and not overly monetize it, you've got a slam dunk. But that's not what we got with Magic Legends, hence the floundering performance and upcoming cancellation. As to the specifics around the shutdown, it looks like servers will be up and running from now until October 31st if you really want to jump in and play one last time. The game's cash shop is no longer accepting cash, and instead items can be purchased using the free in-game currency. Makes you wonder how things would have gone if they did this from the start. But lastly, anyone who did spend money during the open beta will be refunded their full purchase amounts, and this is going to be happening automatically and should process in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Now, unfortunately, along with this, if you make and release a bad game and said game gets shut down, sometimes the people working on the front lines end up losing their jobs, and it looks like that is the case here as well. Of course, my condolences to anyone that was affected. I think it's a pretty sad end to Magic Legends, which was kind of a roller coaster of an arc for me. From when it was first revealed in 2017 as a new next-gen Magic-themed MMO, to the later reclassification as a top-down ARPG, and then ultimately the disappointment that was playing the game. It's just really a sad situation. One day someone will make a good, fun-to-play Magic-themed MMO or RPG. Until then, they're all just living in the shadows that is Magic the Gathering Chandelar. That game was so amazing. Just make a modern one of those, Blizzard, or Wizards. Sorry, wrong corporation. Speaking of Blizzard, the Diablo 4 quarterly update arrived this week, giving us another sneak peek behind the scenes of how development is progressing on what I think I can safely say is one of Blizzard's most anticipated upcoming titles. In fact, frankly, I can't think of anything else from Blizzard that I'm looking forward to in the immediate future. And no, this isn't another Blizzard's Bad Now tangent. Although, it's kind of true. But anyway, Diablo 4 looks dope. I played it at BlizzCon, the last one that happened, and it was really, really fun. So how is the development going? Well, in the most recent update, they dove into the character design, from their silhouettes to the various types of customization available with things like armor and dyes. We get a few videos showing an up-close look at the barbarian and rogue in motion, and the level of detail and fidelity in both the models and animations here is super impressive. Especially knowing that this is a top-down game, so most of the time you won't be seeing things anywhere near this close, but sometimes sometimes you will, because apparently they pointed out in the update that the game's cutscenes will all be rendered in-engine, making use of these like high fidelity models here. Besides getting a close look at some of the playable character models and armor, they also had a few videos showing some monster design, the Blood Bishop, Skeleton Lord, Succubus, and a few others. It was all pretty spooky. I like it. And then sandwiched throughout the article is a bunch of technical talk about the development process. I do appreciate the effort, although most of this flies right over my head. They do things that make the pixels look good. I like that. Make them look good. Thank you. And since we're talking about Blizzard, I also wanted to cover the major WoW update that went live this week. That's patch 9.1, the Chains of Domination. This update brings the ability to fly in Shadowlands, the new Korthia zone in the Maw, the new raid, Sanctum of Domination, the mythic-only Tazavesh dungeon. There's a new PvP season, a new Covenant campaign, improved endgame dungeon loot, as well as some updates to Torghast. But the biggest thing with this update was how long it took to arrive. Shadowlands launched last November and is just now getting its first major patch. Now, this has been a big source of contention in the WoW community, so much so that you may have been noticing recently a lot of talk online about players jumping ship from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy XIV. That was fueled, at least partially, by how long it took for this first update to come out. These content droughts that people have been getting used to in WoW, well, they don't want to get used to it anymore. They want something new, so people are trying out some new MMOs. Well, you know, other MMOs. So now that it's here, I guess we'll see how many people return to WoW. Personally, this update doesn't look interesting enough to draw me back in. I did play Shadowlands at launch for roughly 2 months, and I probably won't go back until at least another major patch happens. I kind of like to wait for multiple updates to come out before I come back. That way I can skip all of these minor eye-level gear grindings and use whatever catch-up mechanics they add. That way I get to see the content without having to dump in hundreds of hours and then just replace all of that in the coming update. That's kind of how these games work in general with every new expansion and new level caps, but I like to see the stuff at some point anyways. I just don't want to play nonstop all the way through and just waste every hour of my life. I'm over that at this point in my life. Next up, we've got an update for V Rising, the upcoming vampire game from Stunlock Studios. That's the team that made Battlerite. And Battlerite Royale, which as a side note, I really enjoyed. I'm pretty sad that that thing didn't end up working out. This top-down class-based Battle Royale, I think was a pretty cool idea. I would kind of like to see more of them. But anyway, if you missed the reveal earlier this year, V Rising is going to be a multiplayer survival sandbox game set in a vast open world full of mythical beasts, dangerous humans, and a variety of locations from lush forests to dark dungeons. Survival elements will play into the fact that you're a vampire. You'll need to feed on humans and avoid being exposed to direct sunlight, along with various other threats like garlic, holy places, angry nuns, and werewolves. There are going to be levels and customizations as you pick from various weapons and vampiric abilities. You'll be able to construct your own castle, form a crew of vampires with other players, and then go raid the bases of enemy vampires in the game's PvP. On top of that, it is full loot PvP where dying starts players over naked and in a coffin. All of this uses the same core gameplay mechanics seen in their prior games. You'll be trying to land active skill shots with WASD movement and cursor-based aiming. The whole thing, I think, sounds really, really neat, and even though their prior games never really took off to become massive hits, in many ways they were kind of cult classics, and I do think Stunlock Studios can deliver here. I played Battlerite and the Royal spin-off, and I really liked them. They were polished, they were fun to play. I thought they were well put together games. They just didn't fully click in the end. So yes, I am excited about V Rising. In this particular week, they actually released a new developer blog diving into some of the inspiration and design ideas for the game. While there isn't much new in terms of gameplay systems or mechanic talk, they do talk about how they're working really hard to immerse players in this dark gothic world by using plenty of atmospheric layers, art, sound, and music. There's a bunch of cool concept art and screenshots here as well if you're interested in checking those out. All in all, This game sounds great. I am really excited for it. Now, as of now, there is no like set release date or release window, but they are planning to have a PC beta on Steam at some point later this year. I also want to give you guys a heads up about Broken Ranks. This is an upcoming isometric MMO that blends the style, look, and overworld movement of old school CRPGs with turn-based combat inspired by JRPGs. A few interesting notes about the game from their website here. They say that when in the turn-based combat and grouped with other players have to plan their movements simultaneously and only have this 10-second window in order to do so. When making a character, there's going to be 7 different classes to choose from, and as you probably suspect, they each have their own set of abilities. And then with these classes, there's going to be all sorts of unique combinations and interactions between them. And they say finally that exploration is going to play a pretty big role as you visit cities, mountaintops, settlements, and ruins inhabited by powerful creatures while you search for riches, fame, and power. This unique looking hybrid is actually a remake of the Pride of Tarn, which was a popular browser MMO from 2012. So the game has been in development for over 5 years and now looks to be nearing completion. In fact, this coming weekend, they're holding an open beta beginning on Friday, July the 2nd and lasting until Monday, July the 5th. This test will let you experience some of the early zones in the game with numerous quests and plenty of combat. And again, it is an open beta, so gaining access is as simple as going to the website and downloading the game. I do really appreciate the look of this thing, especially checking out the overworld. It reminds me so much of, again, playing those classic CRPGs. I guess I'm probably most intrigued, given they're calling this an MMO, where exactly that like MMO elements come into play. Like, how are you going to be encountering other players? Is it going to kind of be like a Destiny shared space within the environment sort of thing? Or are you going to go to a city with like 100+ other adventurers all walking around? I don't know. I'm curious, but this looks kind of interesting. A few weeks back, also, we had the reveal of Palia. This was a massive multiplayer community sim game that is said to have a focus really on the social and community aspects of MMOs without so much of the combat and loot hunting. So the game's going to have extensive character customization. There are life skills like fishing and farming, crafting skills like cooking, activities like climbing and gliding, a robust housing system, multi-year community storylines, and guild neighborhoods. Now, Palia is being made by Singularity 6. They're a small 50-person studio that consists of former Blizzard and Riot devs who say that they aim for this game to give players a deep community experience in their vibrant 3D world. This thing does diverge pretty hard from most MMOs that I normally play, but given that pretty much every one of those is all about combat, grinding, and acquiring loot, I think Palia sounds like a nice, chill change of pace. It really helps that the game looks great as well. So the news today, though, is that they are getting closer to beginning that early testing. On their Discord last week, they mentioned that they're gearing up for the pre-alpha, trying to make sense of all the survey responses they've gotten, and that they would be sending out more invites soon. Well, evidently those invites have started going out. The first wave is complete. So if you're interested in checking out Palia, you could go to their Discord and fill out that survey, or if you don't feel like answering any questions, you can also just go to their website and enter your email. Those are all the big stories from this week, but there are a handful of other things that I wanted to briefly mention. For starters, we're getting the launch of 2 new MMOs next week, in case you missed this news: Crowfall and Sword of Legends Online. Now, of the 2, it does look like Sword of Legends is the more promising one if you had to pick one to choose from, at least in terms of the buzz that I've been hearing. Solo apparently has some fun combat. There's going to be tons of content between PvP and PvE, and evidently not so bad monetization. As for Crowfall, all signs point to this thing not going so well. You know, I don't mean to be too pessimistic about the game, but I was really underwhelmed when I played it a few months back, so I'm not holding my breath here. I will give it another go, though, once it officially launches, just so I can really solidify my thoughts. There's a brand new class added to Black Desert Online this week. It's called the Corsair. She's like a pirate mermaid thing. She can summon waves, dolphins, and a whale. I don't know. Look, BDO combat is pretty darn cool. This class has some neat looking animations. And that hat, look at that hat, that's really good. And finally, we got some new content coming to Warframe on July 6th. They'll be launching the Sisters of Parvos update. This adds a new Corpus Lich system, the Yar'ili frame, and a new supporter pack. I don't even know what that is, but it's coming. You know, to this day, I am still amazed by Warframe. It had such humble beginnings and has come so very far. And with that, we are wrapping up this week's PC gaming news. Now, those of you with a keen eye will have noticed that I changed the second episode in this. Well, originally I was calling this like MMO and RPG news, but then I realized I don't just play MMOs. And my very first installment of this series, this new series that's not the force feed, like half of the video wasn't about MMO. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna call it MMO news. What do I actually care about? It's PC games. PC games are all I play. My consoles, they just collect dust. Since I moved to my new location, they haven't even left the box. So I don't really care about console games. I care about PC games. I talk about PC games. That's what we're gonna call a show. I don't know, maybe next week the name will change again. Who knows? That's the beautiful thing about running your own channel and having your own shows. You could do whatever you want. I can do whatever I want. It's amazing. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate your support as always. I'll see you next time.